Hello and welcome to another episode of Mortgage Influencers, where we bring you professionals who share insight into the latest trends, tips, industry technology, and services to help you be a mortgage influencer in your mortgage business.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a fancy name.
Fancy person. Okay. and we are live. So welcome to another Wednesday in Mortgage Video Mastermind. My name is Ginger Bell. I have Scott Schang with us today. Carl and Frank are off location somewhere. But I'm excited. We have a special guest, Mr. Marshall Sparkman. So thanks for joining us.
Hey, I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, so we're excited to have you on there. So I'll kind of lay the groundwork here, and then Marshall, we're just gonna kind of really start asking questions as far as what you're doing. So Marshall's part of the Freedom Club, and we were just conversing back and forth on some different conversations about content and videos and VA. And we hopped on a call a while ago, and I learned about all the amazing things that Marshall is doing around VA and helping veterans, not just get into homes, but educating realtors and, changing that. And, we've talked about that for a long, long time about how our industry really needs to help realtors understand the power, the benefits, the opportunities, all of those kind of things based around VA. And so Marshall is not just talking the talk, but he's truly walking the walk and doing that education and things like that. So let's start with Marshall. Tell us a little bit about Marshall. I know. So where do you live, and what's your kind of VA area look like? That's a lot of times what.
Well, and I'm curious, how did you find this niche? Because we always say in the mortgage industry, nobody wanted to be in the mortgage industry. We always just ended up there. And I think it's the same thing for niches. We don't always look for niches, but sometimes niches find us. And when you grab them and you run with it over time, you realize you've separated yourself so far from the pack. And then you really kind of, I'm curious to hear your story, because once you get to that point where you're a content creator and an influencer, it really stands out how many people are not treating customers the way that we think they should be treated, right? If they knew the product, if they knew the platform. So, so tell us more about you and how you found this niche.
I want to write a book on customer service because I think it's a lost art, especially these days, right? But so I was in the Air Force. It's kind of all I wanted to do with my life. I grew up a juvenile delinquent. I was in a lot of trouble as a kid, and I'm a son of an alcoholic drug addict who was in and out of jail, and I was arrested 6 times before the age of 18. Wow. So I was going down this terrible path, and then all of a sudden, I'm introduced to airplanes, and I think it's the coolest thing in the world. And then the Air Force, and so I enlisted, and then while I was in school. And then 9/11 happened, and they came along and they're like, hey, we'll give you a full ride scholarship if you want to become an officer. And I'm like, well, sign me up. Where do I sign? So it was the greatest thing that ever happened in my life. I was going one way, and then, through the military, it's taken me a totally different trajectory. And I think it does that to every young man or woman that joins the military. Pretty much have the same story. And when I got out, I was a young captain, and I had 7 organizations under me. I had 423 guys, soldiers. That I was an aircraft maintenance officer, right? So my job was to keep the aircraft in the sky. And I had a lot of command, which means I was over a lot of people. And I was used to presenting to people, teaching, educating with love. Because as an officer, you have zero authority. You've got bars on your shoulder and you've got rank, and they've got to respect you, but you have zero authority of what those guys do out there. So you have to develop a relationship where they trust you and they believe in you. And I had one commander tell me once, he said, a soldier will do something you tell him to one time because he has to, but he's probably not going to do a second or third time on his own. So anyways, fast forward a little bit. I end up getting out of the military, and I thought I was going to flip houses, right? So as soon as I get out, we find out we're pregnant with our 3rd child. and we had just bought a house because my wife wanted to be back in Nashville, which is where I live. We're both from here. And so I thought, well, I'm just going to flip houses. We had a little bit of money in the bank. So that was my grandiose plan. I was going to flip houses. And so I started networking with real estate investors, learning the investor world. And I went to a real estate investor meeting, and they had, it was a panel group, and they had 3 lenders on stage. This is back in 2008. Okay. So the 3 lenders on stage, one was a subprime lender. The other one was a hard money lender. And the third one was this banker lady that worked at a local bank. And so the subprime guy and the hard money guy had their top button unbuttoned and the gold chains hanging out. And they had Rolex on. They kind of had this swagger. And then the lady from the bank, she was all prim and proper in her suit. And then after the meeting, everybody just swarmed these guys. And my buddy that I was with, he was like, man, those are the guys making all the money. And I was like, yeah, I see that. So I had a buddy of mine that I played rugby with through college. And I was like, Rick, tell me about this rugby. Tell me about this mortgage game. And he started laughing at me, and he was like, oh, I'll work 20 hours a week and I'll make over $500,000 this year. And I was like, I didn't even know that existed. Right. So I thought, well, let me get some stability under me, because at this point I had no stability. We got another kid on the way. I need some steady income, and let me get in the mortgage business. So, with the 3rd child on the way, we were on TennCare, which is the state provided insurance. We were on food stamps. It was absolutely terrible. And I did the most logical thing possible. I took a job that's 100% commission. I didn't know any better. So my first day on the job, we went to a refi sweatshop, sitting in cubicles, and we called trigger leads. It was terrible. My first day on the job, the very first phone call that I made was this couple that had been turned down by Countrywide, and I was able to refinance them. And I remember I went home. It was first call I ever made. I got a deal. It was just like God was there, like, raining down. And the check, I don't remember how much it was, but I remember I took it home and I showed my wife, and I was like, honey, look, it was as much money as I made an entire month as a captain in the Air Force. And I was like, imagine if I could do 2 of these in a month. So that was my mentality. Well, people started referring me military guys. So they were like, hey, you need to talk to this guy. He understands your lingo. He'll help you out. So I, as any good soldier would do, I literally printed off the guidelines, and I would go home with my Sharpie and pen, and I would just dork out in the VA guidelines. And I just wanted to know everything there was to know about it. Pretty much from my first deal, I kind of got that way. And then slowly I started calling on real estate agents. I love a good realtor just as much as the next loan officer does. I love calling on them, right? We all love that. But eventually they just started referring me, and the niche sort of came to me. Long story short, the answer to your question was, as soon as the word got out that I was doing it, people just started referring me. And then I would go out and I would teach classes to the local real estate office. I say, listen, there's a lot of misconceptions about VA loans. If you don't mind, broker, I'm going to come in and I'll teach your agents for free. We'll get somebody to bring in some lunch, and we'll just teach you guys everything there is to know about the VA loan. And really, that's what kind of put me on the map. And then I started doing a lot of video content. Over the years, I've been doing a ton of videos because I realized that veterans just straight up don't understand the VA loan. Realtors don't understand the VA loan. Heck, most loan officers don't understand the VA loan. I get calls. It's going to sound braggadocious, and I don't mean it that way, but I get calls from underwriters from other mortgage companies that I've worked with in the past that will ask me questions about VA underwriters. They'll say, hey, what do you think about this? And I'm like, I'm supposed to be asking you these questions, right? But, the VA loan is actually very simple. I think we overcomplicate it. It's got its quirks and nuances, but, I think just you've got to become a master at your craft with whatever you do, right?
Yeah. No, this is, I love this story because it really is. I find so many content creators are guideline geeks. Like that's that you like, if you switch out a couple of products and your story sounds so much like my story. Like when I started originating, I wasn't a salesperson. So I went into this dark room filled with bankers boxes of turndowns from all the other loan officers in our company. And I more than tripled the production of any other loan officer in our company for the next 2 years, only working the turndowns that they couldn't figure out, because I was a guideline geek. And I love the fact that you said that. And the challenges with VA is that it's not black and white. VA requires you to understand the boundaries and then do what's best for the veteran within those boundaries. You're not going to find the answer. So any loan officer doing VA loans following answers is going to leave a lot on the table and is going to be, giving people a lot of misinformation. So you said this was 2008. So like you got in right when everything was spiraling.
I did.
That's
I didn't know any better. Honestly, did I was
I
was like, why are all these people getting out of the mortgage business? They're all getting out. Why? This is great. Like, how much money you can make.
Yeah, and you did, and it sounded like you did well because everybody else's hair was on fire, and that's so funny because Ginger and I talk about this a lot. You can take this market, because I wouldn't call this market 2008, but it feels like it, right? If you're in the trenches, it feels like, oh my gosh, what do I do? There's a lot of chaos and a lot of changes. But what you did to thrive during that time is exactly what loan officers need to be doing now, which is educating, creating content, being a master of your craft, learning the underwriting guidelines, and not just taking the easy path, right? When you get a challenge in front of you, I have a feeling you hunt that thing down until there's no rock to turn over, right?
Yeah, there's nothing sexy about it. I mean,
it's just tenacity and passion.
So let's talk about, I want to talk about the videos a little bit.
Yeah. I want to talk about the
you
videos.
have been doing videos, Marshall, for a while, specifically on VA. And so what do you think? What's the top videos that you've done? What's your thought process? Because I think people struggle with, where do I get started in creating the content? Reading the guides, obviously, but we know those guides. It's like, my gosh, there's tons of different paths. So for someone, first of all, what's your top video that you are aware of on your YouTube channel?
My top video, I've got two. One is how veterans leverage the VA loan to buy investment properties. All my top videos are these super nichey, like weird, like how to calculate residual income. I mean, it's like weird stuff. And that's my top. My second top one is the new construction process. So we're talking about one-time closes and how to do that. It's just, the top videos are super nichey. It's weird the way that works out.
And you make videos. So your videos, you very much gear towards an audience, which again, that's the other thing. And especially if we're talking about veterans, because, you have two different audiences when you're creating videos, right? We have our consumers that we're talking to about what they need to know. So if you're making a video specifically for veterans, you're going to have a conversation with them, what they need to know. But I also think, and what you've done very well, is that other lane, which is the videos specifically for realtors.
Yeah. And
those are made differently, and you focus on those differently. And I know when we went through your YouTube channel, we could clearly see what you had as far as the two. So we actually recommended you put into the playlists and to categorize. And a lot of people miss that on YouTube because you put all your things together. And what I like to see is to have those separated. So making your videos to your target audience, and you can separate those out in your YouTube channel into playlists. So walk me through the process. You're going to make a video for consumer, for realtor.
Well, that was very eye-opening for me when you helped me organize my YouTube channel. You're like, oh, you need to get these in playlists, because everything was my complaint about YouTube was you put all this content out there and there's no way for people to search it, or there's no way, it's not categorized.
Yeah.
But through playlists, you can absolutely do that. So my thoughts are, we do two types of videos. So we do vertical, because you're supposed to be doing those, right?
Your short form. Yep.
Yeah. The short videos are usually consumer direct, and I just get financial tips. I jokingly call it tips from dad. I think that's my latest hashtag on TikTok and that kind of stuff. So that's the way I look at it. It's like, I want to teach these young kids, because, my daughters are in high school, about to graduate and stuff. And I'm like, all their friends are following me, and it's kind of funny. And I'm like, okay, I need to be teaching them stuff their dad's not teaching them about finance. So that's kind of the way I look
love
at
it.
it. I feel like I'm teaching my daughter's boyfriends or their friends, you know,
Yeah.
because that's my audience on the younger generation. But yeah, I have one that's client direct, that's focused. I'll give you another super easy if you want to dominate YouTube. Like, I live in Nashville, and I got on YouTube and I typed in real estate Nashville. There's one realtor that's got a couple videos, and there's some other companies from out of state that are advertising whatever. They're not even in real estate. They were popping up top and getting all the views on real estate Nashville. I'm like, how easy is it to go hyper local on YouTube? Okay, so like, here's another. I'll give this away. Get on TubeBuddy or whatever it is, and YouTube. The analytics will tell you exactly what people are searching in your state, in your area. Do a video on that, and then you're going to guess what? So I typed in VA loan Nashville yesterday. There are 2,000 people a month that are searching for VA loans in Nashville. Guess what? They're about to see my pretty face on there, right? Like, I don't know if they're going to get a loan or if they're just kicking tires, but I'm about to have 2,000 people a month that I'm hyper targeting on YouTube. My problem as a broker is I'm not licensed in every state. So YouTube, I'll get people call me all the time from California asking me questions on VA loans. I'm like, I'd love to help you, but the fact is you need to call, get on, some website and find those guys. Yeah. So the realtor the realtor content, I'm very intentional about putting out realtor content. So what I do whatever the hot topics. I read Housing Wire, all the different news website, Live Wire, whatever the sites are. I stay abreast, and then I just give realtors updates. Usually I'll put it out on the social media, and then once a week, my marketing genius that works with me full time, she takes those videos and puts them in a newsletter, and we send them out to realtors on Fridays at 8 a.m. Cool. And just kind of keeping them in the loop of what's going on.
Now, you'd mentioned your vertical videos, and I see on your YouTube channel you're using shorts. Are you taking that same video and putting that on TikTok, or are you recording? Because you mentioned TikTok. Are you pretty active on TikTok, and are you creating separate content for each channel?
Good question. I'm trying to figure that out. I don't think
we all are.
I don't know that TikTok is ever going to get you any business. Like, there's some guys that are TikTok famous in the mortgage business, and you can see them on TikTok, and then you type in MMI or whatever, look at their production. They're not closing anything. Right. They may be someday. There may be something to it in the future. I think it's a long-term game. I think you're shooting for a demographic.
Likes aren't loans. Likes aren't loans. That's what we've always said about content. Traffic doesn't matter. Views don't matter if you're not converting that traffic. I mean, if you're not getting some sort of termination point, because especially you with your level of expertise, if you're just if they're not able to get to you, and this is actually a question that I want to have, because one of the biggest challenges I had over the years was getting that traffic, that YouTube traffic, into your hands. So like, what calls to action are you using? How are you finding that consumers are engaging with you when they're seeing these videos? Well,
here's the thing. I mean, the fact is, the people are going to buy a house once every 5 or 10 years, or whatever the stats are. But I don't want to come across pushy or salesy. I just want to come across as a subject matter expert. And when they need something, they're gonna be like, hey, that one guy, that's who we need to call. So, my call to action is, I probably need to do a better job at that. Ginger, we got to work on that. But, my call to action is I give them a link back to my website, and, they can go on there and fill out a short form, or long form, or whatever they want to do.
Okay. Yeah. I know people have had, we've had a lot of luck with Calendly, like, because it's a, remember, if they're at their highest point of motivation while they're watching your video, and if you're not going to give them direct access to you because you don't know when they're watching it, try throwing a Calendly link in there and see if they're booking calls with you. Just as another way.
We can test it too. So we did this with Danny, and so he's finding, and it's funny because people are making the appointment from the Calendly link, and it's coming at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And so they won't fill an application out, right?
Right.
They're not ready for that. And I think they think of it as kind of like making that doctor's appointment or that dentist appointment. It's like, you just you don't go to the hospital and say, I'm having surgery today, if you don't know what the problem is, right? And so you make that appointment. What you can do is you can make different Calendly links and name them different things. Yep. And so we're doing that with some clients where we're testing out different platforms. Then you can see where they're coming from. So, you know, for Danny, and Danny, TikTok has worked really well with him. I know he has specifically closed 8 loans through TikTok because he's tracked where they're coming from, but he's posting a lot too. So you have to stick with it. But that's the thing I would do, Marshall, is I would get some different Calendly links and name them and then test them based on, you know, what you're doing. And if you're doing a Facebook ad post or something like that.
Yeah.
And Marshall, your instincts are 100% accurate. And this is one of the challenges is over the last 10 to 15 years, while you were learning the mortgage industry, big call center lenders and lead generation companies were training consumers that the way that you get questions answered about a mortgage is that you fill out a form on the internet and it goes into a black hole. But the reality is consumers are online because they have questions about the mortgage and they're just looking for somebody that can answer that question for them. I'm 100% on board with you. I don't do calls to action. I do calls to engagement. If you have further questions, here are 2 ways that you can reach out to me. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. I think you absolutely nailed it with that part of it. And it also really makes it evergreen and it speaks to your character, because when people are watching your videos, they're assessing your character and your personality, and they're immediately going, wow, this guy cares. Like you can tell this is the first time you and I have met, and I can tell you're a passionate, caring person just by the way you talk about this stuff. And it comes across on the videos. So yeah. And boy, there are no geographic boundaries on content, right? Like I learned that pretty quick. It's like all of a sudden, no, I don't do business in Guam. I don't know how to help you there.
And I think people a lot of times when they hit those, I do have Calendly on my YouTube, and we've got a very low percentage of people actually showing up to the appointments rate. I think it's like less than 10%. And what I've learned is people, they want an answer right then and there on the spot. And you're right, they usually do hit your YouTube site at midnight. But here's another interesting thing is like, we're going through this right now. You know, I've got part of me going out on my own and opening my own broker shop was I wanted to be in control of my own marketing, and I didn't want corporate compliance telling me how to market, by God. And so I built out this I chose Be in Touch, and we built out this super sweet, like follow-up process. So if a lead comes in, we're not losing them and we're going to stay in touch with them. And I had somebody recently, a couple of weeks ago, this lady responded and she was like, I didn't sign up for your everlasting text and email campaign. I just needed to ask you a question. And I was like, you are absolutely right. Like I don't want to be on your everlasting email or text message. I just need to know about this, like, and I feel like if you just give people that answer that they need and then stay in touch in a genuine way, not a pushy way, not a like, do business with me now, just like, hey man, just remember I'm here. Here's what's going on. If you need me, let me know. I think if you just come through in a cool manner, especially the younger generation, they're a lot more receptive to that, other than the hard close, like you send them a text message, once a week, like, are you ready to do your application? No, man,
right.
Hold up, dude. Like, I think that turns people off.
But very similar to what you do with the real estate agents, if you send the videos, 2 or 3 videos you did last month, monthly to your entire database and say, hey, here's some videos I did last month. I don't know if any of it would interest you. You're staying in touch and you're reminding them that you're a problem solver. And that's another thing that we always talk about. The content is you're not always solving the specific problem of the person that's watching the video, but you are exhibiting yourself as a problem solver. You're demonstrating that you are a problem solver. And every single video, you're like, here's this crazy weird thing, because the niche things are the weird things. For me, it was manual underwriting. Like don't take no for an answer. Like those videos go crazy for me. And because there's so many companies that claim to be veteran focused that have credit score limitations and they don't do manual underwriting. And so they get churned a lot. And so there's a lot of those people looking for second opinions on the internet, and they just type in a little bit more detailed question. And that's where you're getting that traffic from, is because they probably talked to a call center and they realized the depth of their problem a little bit more. So they added a few more keywords, and then your content is pop. You did a video about that exact thing.
And you don't know what they're searching for either. Interestingly enough, and I do videos on a lot of different topics, my number one video on my YouTube channel is interview with an underwriter.
Yeah,
I bet.
That's fantastic.
And there's no hashtags. There's nothing that I've done to push SEO. And that is, I've had thousands and thousands and thousands of views on that. It's just an interview with an underwriter. So you don't know what they want as far as their answers, their questions and answers.
I think going client direct is so difficult, and you're up against people spending so much money. I think for a loan officer, it's easier to go after the realtors. I think it's easier to go after them being a subject matter expert in one field. They say get rich in your niche. There's a guy here locally that specializes in rehab loans, 203K loans. And
Yeah.
I mean, that guy just crushes it, man, but that's his thing. Like there's another guy here in town. He specializes in the Egyptian and Arab community and just absolutely demolishes it, owns that niche, man. So I think you've got to find your niche. You've got to own it. The realtors all need to know who you are and what your specialty is. And the thing is, what I learned is realtors won't send me all their business, but they will send me a VA loan because they know I'm not going to screw it up. They know I know what I'm doing. So, and I'm like, hey, if you just send me one type of deal, I'm totally okay with that because there's enough of you guys.
They can blend in some others though, because then you start building that relationship. So if you start with that niche and they can go into others, when I first started in the industry as an account executive in wholesale, I worked at Argent, and our niche was bank statements, manufactured homes. And I'm in Oregon. And so I was known for manufactured homes. And it's funny, honestly, less than 10% of my pipeline was manufactured homes.
That's funny.
But I mean, my clients, they knew, honestly, I would go into an office and there would be all of their files would be stacked up on the conference room table, and I would get first look. And I knew everybody else's guidelines. And so I'd be like, that's a countrywide, that's this, that's that. So when you know your guides and you can talk about them. So being a guideline geek is a great thing to do right now and to get into that niche.
You hit a good point. My business is 70-30. It's 70% VA. So that means 30% of my business, which equals a lot of money, in my household every year to my family. 30% of my business, I'm not even asking for it. I'm not prospecting for it. It's coming to me from those realtors that I'm developing relationships with.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask is how often when they send you a VA loan and they see how you do business and they're like, and then they start sending you more and more business and non-VA loans.
That's
do you think that they pigeonhole you? Do you think sometimes they think they should only send you VA?
That's a very good question, because I was very fearful about that for years before I went all in. But I'll tell you what, when I decided to go all in with that niche and let realtors know that's my niche, it was a game changer for my life. So I would say just pick it, go all in. Don't worry about it. It'll come. That's a very good question though. And then, yes, they do pigeonhole you. Some of them do, but the ones that are like, man, this guy rocks his team. Our average clear to close right now is 12 days. I mean, like, why would they not want to, as long as I'm nice to them and don't be a jerk, be nice and my team is nice and we don't drop the ball very often, it does happen. But, I think if you go at it and do your best to all these realtors, they will send you the other stuff, but you will get pigeonholed too. And that, I'm totally okay with that. Like I said before, even if you don't send me anything, but you send me your VA stuff, I'm cool with that.
Yeah. And I know we're coming up on the top of the hour here, but what you say about educating realtors is so important. And we take for granted the fact that because they're in the real estate industry, we assume they understand the loan side. So few realtors have any clue on anything about the loans. I've had realtors ask if we do refi loans. It's like, I'm a lender. We do all loans. Like it's
our
like,
job to educate them. And I think as loan officers,
correct.
we do a terrible job at that.
Yeah, no, correct. Because and sometimes I think loan officers get frustrated because they don't understand loans, and maybe they act like they don't want to understand loans, but it's important. And when you can go in there and let them know that you're the person that they can lean on if they have any questions about this topic. But man, I really, really commend you for having the guts to take that niche and just going all in on it. I think it's absolutely brilliant. And I've seen it work over and over again. And you're not limited to one niche. You
Right.
may decide to make a second niche, those VA construction loans. It's still under the VA hood, but now you're just focusing on construction loans. But I love this because it reinforces, sometimes when you're out there just creating content and you're not talking to other content creators, you're like, well, I'm not sure if I'm doing good or not. You're doing amazing. There's always things that you can do to grow it, but every step of the way, every decision you've made is just spectacular. I really commend you for taking that, because it doesn't always work right away. Right. I mean, you have to work at it for a while before it starts to get momentum. And then when it gets momentum, you're like, whew, this is nice.
Yeah. So we're going to get to spend some more time with Marshall. Marshall and I are working on a couple of projects I'm super excited about. So we're going to be back on. And then, of course, Marshall's in Nashville, our hosting town for the next Freedom Club.
We'll see you in November.
So we will definitely spend time together in November. So Marshall, thank you so much. I always love our time that we spend together. I mean, truly. And Scott, I knew you guys were just like two peas in a pod.
Absolutely. I love what you're doing.
Okay, great. You guys have a great day. Thanks so much. And we will see you next Wednesday. And I'm confirming our special guest for next week this afternoon. So I'll let you know.
Oh, so you're not going to let us know. I know we got some good ones coming.
I tell you what, we are booked almost now all the way through the end of October. So we've got some really exciting guests. So Marshall, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you guys.
It.
Thanks, Marshall.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.